Rubber, are you alright?
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the best types in Pokemon, and we'll be ranking them all.
Alright! Use Dragon Breath!
Number 18, Ice. Let's get the good out of the way first. Ice type is an incredible offensive typing. It hits a lot of common and powerful types, including Dragon, Flying, Grass, and Ground super effectively. Additionally, their designs are quite striking, but like real ice types are extremely fragile. Even if they have good defense or a good secondary typing, there's no getting around the fact that ice is weak to some of the most common attacking types in the game, like fire, rock, and fighting. Plus, it only resists itself. Even Ice's strong offense isn't that great, considering so many other Pokemon can learn Ice-type moves.
I see both of you!
So, there's little benefit to using an Ice type when you can just teach a different Pokemon an Ice move.
Froslass counter-strikes with a powerful ice beam that has Pikachu trapped and unable to move!
Number 17, Bug. This type has a reputation for being weak, and it's pretty deserved. A whopping 7 different Pokemon types resist Bug-type attacks. Additionally, while they do resist common attacking types like fighting, ground, and grass, they're weak to common ones too. Flying, fire, and rock types are everywhere. Bug types also tend to be early game Pokemon who never attain the power of other types. Bugs have gotten better as of late, with newer, stronger moves, and even a few powerhouse Pokemon to improve their stable. Even so, they're still outclassed by most other types on average. Number 16, Poison. For most of the franchise, Poison has been a bottom-tier type. Despite resisting an impressive 5 different types, Poison is weak to 2 common powerful types, Ground and Psychic. But what's worse is that, until recently, Poison was only super effective against Grass types. And with Flying and Fire types being so common, there was little reason to use Poison instead. All that changed with the introduction of Fairy type, a stronger, newer type that Poison is great against. Recent buffs aside, Poison has always been a reliable type for defensive, stall strategies, and chip damage with the Poison status condition. While they rarely win beauty contests, Poison types do have their uses. Number 15, Rock. In concept, Rock type sounds great. Although generally slow, Rock Pokemon are very physically defensive, and they're great against types like Flying, Fire, and the aforementioned Bug and Ice.
Onyx, tackle attack!
It even has resistances to normal and fire types among others. But the trouble is how many types it's weak to, 5. As tied with another type we'll be discussing later as the most in the entire franchise. They're all super common types too, like water, grass, ground, and fighting.
Good luck!
It's even weak to steel, which is basically a better rock type. And because rock is so often paired with ground, it takes quadruple damage to some types. While rock can be tough in some situations, in many cases, it's surprisingly paper thin.
Yes, I know it will.
Alter, no!
Number 14, Normal. These are just regular old Pokemon. It may not be great against anything, but there can also be normal type strength.
Hello, Thunderfang!
They're only weak to fighting type attacks, and they're immune to Ghost. While Ghost is also immune to Normal, and it's resisted by defensive types like Rock and Steel, it otherwise hits everything normally. Despite often featuring as the weak Pokemon early on in the Pokemon journeys, Normal types also have some of the most diverse move pools in the series, often being able to learn a wide variety of attacks to be great against any type you need to hit. So, while they're rarely the standouts on a team, Normal types can have a lot of versatility in supportive roles. Number 13, Grass. Out of the 3 starter Pokemon types, Grass is easily the worst.
You can do it, Bulbasaur! Razor Leaf!
It's tied with Rock for having the most weaknesses of any type, with 5, and most of them are common types like Flying, Fire, and Ice. In addition, 7 different types resist Grass-type attacks. However, compared to many of the previous types, Grass isn't as bad, thanks to some decent resistances and the fact that it hits types like Water, Ground, and Rock super effectively. From an aesthetic perspective, Grass also has some of the most iconic and striking designs, given that most of them are based on plants. And of course, we all love our Grass starter Pokemon. Number 12, Flying. Flying types are very common and have been combined with every other type. Their designs take inspiration from basically every real or imagined creature with wings, or that moves through the air.
Alright, Pidgeot, Ghost Attack now!
Additionally, they're great against frequently seen types, namely Bug, Fighting, and Grass. While they're weak against Rock, Ice, and Electric, Flying types also enjoy some nice resistances and an immunity to Ground. Honestly, if we had to point to one type as the absolute middle of the road for Pokemon types, Flying type would probably be it. It has some drawbacks, but just as many strengths. Number 11, Ground. In terms of offensive types, Ground is easily one of the best. It hits a whopping 5 types super effectively, including bulky defensive ones like Steel, Rock, and Poison, as well as quick powerhouses like Fire and Electric. Additionally, while ground moves can't hit flying types, ground types are completely immune to electric attacks, which comes in handy. However, a major drawback of ground types is that, in addition to many of them being slow, they're weak to both grass and water, which are everywhere, as well as ice. Regardless, ground types can still send shockwaves, or rather earthquakes, through most Pokemon teams. Number 10, Dark. Introduced initially as a hard counter to the Psychic types, Dark types are immune to the ESP Pokemon and hit them super effectively. They're also great against Ghost Pokemon, often sporting high attack power and cool and/or sinister designs. Dark types were once near the top of the food chain, given that their only weaknesses were the comparatively puny Bug types, as well as Fighting types. However, since bugs have gotten better and with the introduction of Fairy types, Dark Pokemon aren't as good as they once were. Yet, even if they've been nerfed somewhat, Dark types remain a solid choice. Number 9, Fighting. With a name like Fighting type, it only makes sense that these Pokemon have great physical attack strength.
Knock off attack, let's go!
Frequently boasting strong moves and tough designs, fighting Pokemon hit hard, and they do so against 5 different types, including the aforementioned Dark, Normal, Rock, and Ice types, as well as Steel. Their blows may pass through ghosts, but fighting types strike most types pretty well, and often have diverse move pools to deal with the ones they don't. Sadly, fighting is another type that fell off slightly when Fairy was introduced, now being weak to that along with Psychic and Flying types. They still pack plenty of punch though. Number 8. Psychic. How the mighty have fallen. Once the most broken and overpowered type in Pokemon, the Psychic type has gotten much weaker as time goes on. This is primarily due to the introduction of Dark and Steel, which are immune and resistant to it respectively. That isn't to say Psychic isn't still strong though. Apart from those two, only other Psychics resist it. And sure, its weaknesses to Bug, Ghost, and Dark are a problem. However, Psychic types tend to have the highest special attack of all Pokemon. Additionally, there are many strong and legendary Psychic types, making the type quite powerful on average. Number 7. Ghost. One of the main counters to Psychic types, Ghost hit these powerhouses super effectively, along with themselves.
Gengar, Shadow Ball!
In addition to making Ghosts one of only 2 types whose attacks are good against themselves, it also makes them very similar to Dark types. However, it's in other areas that make Ghosts better than their fellow spooky Pokemon.
Use Shadow Punch!
Does block!
Ghosts are resisted by fewer types, and they're the only type with 2 immunities, being completely unaffected by normal and fighting types, whose moves are everywhere. Ghost types often have tricky status moves, and the fact that they're weak to other ghosts and Dark types can make them a more technical type than most, but they're still scary good. Number 6. Fire. As one of the 3 starter types, Fire types are certainly one of the most popular kinds of Pokemon. Their fierce and fiery designs definitely leave an impression.
Lucario!
Not only do they look amazing, they also hit amazingly well too, striking 4 types super effectively, including Ice, Bug, Grass, and Steel. They're also surprisingly good defensively, since they resist everything they're good against, along with fire and fairy moves. While fire types are held back from the absolute top tier by their weakness to common types ground, rock, and water, they're still a good Pokemon type that burns brightly. Number 5. Electric. Given that the mascot of the whole Pokemon franchise is an electric type, this one is certainly in the spotlight. But electric Pokemon are more than just the face of the franchise. Not only are most of them extremely fast, they also pack plenty of voltage. Electric attacks are fantastic against water and flying, which are frequently used types.
Man, that's fast!
And while they might not be good against each other or grass or dragon types, they only have one weakness, ground, which is also immune to electric moves. Honestly, there's not a whole lot wrong with electric types. There are just some types that are better than them.
Oh, it didn't connect!
Number 4. Water. Out of all the Pokemon types, water is the most common. Water is everywhere in the Pokemon world. Some have said there's too much. And the glut of water Pokemon means that there are plenty to choose from. The type itself is excellent. It only has 2 weaknesses in grass and electric, which are easy to avoid. Meanwhile, it hits the earthy types, ground and rock super effectively, along with fire. Its defenses aren't half bad either, since water Pokemon resist attacks from ice, steel, fire, and other water types.
What's going on?
With their ease of use and all-around strengths, water types may not have the power of our top 3, but any decent trainer will have one on their team.
Alright, Hydro Pump!
Number 3. Fairy. The newest type on the Pokemon block, these ethereal Pokemon haven't been around long, but that just means they haven't got a chance to be nerfed yet. Fairy types' only 2 weaknesses are poison and steel, which aren't typically types that are used offensively.
Dodge it!
Fairy type moves hit dark, fighting, and dragon types super effectively, and they also resist these types in the case of the former 2, or are immune in the case of dragon. While fairies can't hit their weaknesses or fire types very well, they're still quite powerful offensively, and they usually boast some impressive special defense. Fairy Pokemon may often be cute, but they're also incredibly strong. Number 2. Steel. Sometimes the best defense is having the best defense. Despite the Steel type having 3 common weaknesses in fire, ground, and fighting, that barely matters since it either resists or is immune to 11 different types out of 18. That means there's a good chance that whatever's thrown at a Steel type just isn't gonna hit much, particularly when most of them have spectacular physical defense. For most of Pokemon's history, Steel's offense wasn't particularly good, since it was only good against Ice and Rock, 2 types that other more offensively based types hit better. However, given that it's one of only 2 types that's good against Fairy, Steel has gotten quite the buff of late, helping these Pokemon shine nearly as much as their namesake.
You did it, Lucario!
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure to go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Dragon. This awesome type has long been at the top of Pokemon's food chain. Not only do most of them have cool designs, most dragons are either powerful legendaries or nearly as strong regular Pokemon. While they're only super effective against other dragons, their overall strength and often varied move pools help them blow away whatever's in front of them. They even resist the trio of starter types, fire, water, and grass, as well as electric. Their only weaknesses for a long time were themselves and ice types, which, as we established, isn't that great. Although Fairy's introduction has made dragon types not quite as overpowered, since dragons are weak against them and Fairy can't be hit by dragon attacks, we'd argue that the dragon type is still the best one overall. Is there a Pokemon type you'd have ranked higher? Help our list evolve by sharing your picks in those comments below. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.